So the big question is this: how do small businesses like yours, who feel like you're doing all the right things and going to all the right events, reach the federal buyer in a way that helps you win more contracts? That is the question, and this is the place to get your answers. My name is Neil McDonnell. Welcome to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce.
Hey, I just wanted to share a couple of quick stories with you about when the process is followed, results will be achieved by you, whether it's success, winning a contract, etc. So I want to give you a couple of quick examples of how people filling out their profiles and having a solid capability statement and reaching out to the government so they're visible has led to success. So the first bullet you see over on the left-hand side of this video is a member of the GovCon Chamber named 𝗳𝗄𝗏. And he came in, filled out his DSBS profile, followed the whole course process that we had. And he got back to me and said, ever since his profile's been updated, he's been getting contacted by the government. Doesn't mean there's a flood of 1,000 people coming in, right? But what it means is now he's visible to the federal buyer. Now they're reaching out to him to consider him during an opportunity. And so that's really good. I've had several people like that who just keep coming in, who talk about completing the DSBS profile leads to more outreaches by the government who finds them in particular. So that leads me to my second example here is Pat. He's out in the middle of the country. His business, he went in and updated his DSBS profile. And it was funny. He also, like 𝗳𝗄𝗏, had got some outreach, and he had gone to different agencies. He's really good at knocking on doors, getting in and getting meetings. And in the meetings, he would call me afterwards and say, Neil, just another agency asking me, do I have an updated DSBS profile? You know, and so he thanked me for pushing him to get it filled out. But the win that Pat really had, which I thought was amazing, was that he got contacted by $1 billion company. This is on a manufacturing side, so product sales. He got contacted by a company on $1 billion, $1 billion firm, contacted Pat's company, contacted him and said, we want to talk to you about doing a deal where you're providing our products, etc. Long story short, a few weeks later after he'd done his due diligence with them, they had vetted him, he landed a deal with them to be their exclusive provider of their products to the federal government. This is $1 billion firm saying, hey, Pat, we want your company to be the exclusive provider in this particular space. It's awesome for him. It's a good fit for the largest. And all of it was because of DSBS. This large multi-billion-dollar company found Pat's company through DSBS. They reached out to him and the conversation got started. So it was awesome. The third bullet on there are one of my favorite stories. If you don't know, the GovCon Chamber used to be called the HubZone Chamber of Commerce. And the reason we changed it is because everything we teach is related to all small businesses. And when I started the HubZone Chamber, I was just focused on the HubZone. But then my breadth of view began to expand as I learned more and more about the challenges HubZone faced and realized, well, women-owned firms were facing the same challenge, or veteran-owned, et cetera. So anyways, during the phase when we really were pushing hard on the HubZone, we pushed with these firms to say, get your DSBS profiles up to date. Get your small business profiles up to date so the government can see you, they can vet you when they're doing market research. And so that third bullet talks about an opportunity that came out of the State Department where we helped the State Department find HubZone firms, and almost 100 HubZone firms inside of a day based on their DSBS profile. That eventually led to 2 of those HubZone firms winning a $50 million contracts each. It's multi-year, $50 million contract. But this was huge, and that leads right into the fourth bullet, is that for 20 years, the HubZone program had never been hitting its number of 3%. And when we came on the scene, we said, we want that to change. What can we do to help move it in the right direction? And so instead of us looking at policy where a lot of other people were focused and some of the challenges within the government, we turned our eyes on the industry and said, well, how can we help the industry since those other areas are covered? And when we reached out to industry, the biggest thing that we saw came from the small businesses being invisible to the buyer. It was hard for the buyers to ever find HubZone firms, et cetera. So we dove deep into the 5,000 HubZone firms out there, and we pushed as many as possible to get their profiles up to date. And then by having their profiles up to date, the capability narrative, and then pushing through in the RFI phase, reaching out to the agencies where the agencies also could find them and do their research, it all spun out in a good way where HubZone firms not only stopped this 10-year downward slide of performance to goal and reversed it by 20%, but the actual dollars going to HubZone firms went up by almost $3 billion. It was huge. And most of this came from the HubZone firms just looking at themselves and saying, what could we do to start following a process that's more like how the buyers are looking for us? So updating their profiles, making sure the capability statement was a 6-second capability statement, meaning you can read it that fast, and then making sure they were actually contacting the buyers when the buyers were expressing interest during market research. Anyways, we talk a lot about this later. I just wanted to provide you a couple of quick stories about this. This is some of what I'll talk about in the webinar. But when you come to the webinar, our goal is to help you increase the visibility. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click on the link below, and I'll see you on Thursday.